Hey, Mikey.
Hey, welcome back to the show where me and Jake are going to master debate each other.
We are, yeah. And Bob's going to help. The voice from above is going to drop topics on me and Mike here today, and we have no idea what it's going to be. And we're going to see if we can solve all the world's problems. So stick on with us.
It's crazy. You look at those opening pictures, and I realized how old I've gotten so fast.
It happens 1 year at a time. It just sneaks up on you.
It really does. It really does. Welcome back, Jake, and hello to everybody out there in podcast land. Today, we're going to be going back and forth with a little bit of, I'm going to say questions from God, but it is going to be kind of like questions from God.
Yeah, it's a three-letter name, God, Mob. But it's, yeah, I mean, we genuinely don't know what he's got in store for us, but he's going to serve it up to us from the voice from above, and we're going to see what we got for you. I don't know. I'm excited.
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
First question. What is your worst case scenario?
Oh, okay. Worst case scenario. Oh, I assume we're talking in hazmat, right? Not just like my life falling apart.
Hazmat. Yeah. Hazmat.
Okay. Sounds good. Hazmat. Okay. I mean, the classic case inside of hazmat is something to do with HF, right? Everyone. That's kind of the boogeyman for everyone. I mean, but you can obviously get worse than that, right? If we think about nuclear bombs or, terrorist events, I think that probably supersedes an HF spill. But in terms of like a run-of-the-mill, something's getting outside of its containment and I have to deal with it. Yeah, HF definitely gives me the creeps, I would say. What about you, Mike?
Well, so we went in totally different thought process directions here. When Bob said, what is the worst case scenario, I didn't think event. I thought things that happen on the event. And one of the worst things that ever happened to me, which was my kind of worst case scenario, was I was told facts in classroom and I absorbed them as true facts without previously checking them. And when I was on scene, I went back through my little Rolodex and I pulled what I thought was a true fact out and I used it on a run. And it turned out to be 100% false, to the point that the incident commander was able to turn around and call me out on being wrong on scene. And for me, that was my worst case scenario.
I mean, I think I concede nuclear bomb. That might be worse. To drop a hot fact and have it be totally wrong, that's pretty painful.
Oh, yeah. And I gave the fact with such like, a lot of times it's not, especially when you're on scene and you're dealing with incident commanders, you're dealing with operations people, like you have to have an air of like, no, I'm right. I know what I'm talking about. Like, trust me. Like, this is the path forward that we move. And you do that to give a sense of confidence because the incident commander's got to make decisions based upon you things that you say. So I gave this information with this air of confidence, like, trust me, come with me, my brother. I shall make it right. That kind of
yes. I know.
And yeah, totally wrong. In fact, he kind of looked and he's like, I don't think that's right. And within about 30 seconds of him doing some quick background check, he's like, yeah, no, that's totally not right. I lost all credibility in that moment. And for me, that was the worst case scenario. I will handle I'm not saying I can fix anything that comes our way, but I feel like scenario wise, we could handle anything that is thrown at us. But that was my worst case scenario.
I love on the flip side, I really take the question right down on the nose, right? Like, oh, what would be the worst thing? You're like, I just don't want to be embarrassed in front of my friends, right? Like that's the biggest concern, right? And what the reality is, like, we go to all this training, we go to all this schooling, we train for our whole career just to have those moments where someone's like, who knows the answer? And you're like, I do. And that moment is so glorious. But man, when you fall on your face in that moment, it couldn't be a farther fall.
It's man, instant karma it's a cruel mistress, man. Cruel mistress.
So I think that I'm now going to take Mike's side and agree that public embarrassment is the worst disaster anyone could be involved in. All right, back to the voice from above. Bobby, give us something.
All right. What do you want more? A meter with 10% left on it or a cylinder with half the air in it and there's a mayday?
Am I the mayday or is it?
Yeah, wait,
or
where
is
am
it
I in
somebody
this
else?
situation?
Anybody, whatever you want.
I would rather have the cylinder with half of a. Yeah, I think I would rather have the cylinder with half air because, like, at least then my legs work and I can just leave, right? I mean, granted, who knows what's going on in this theoretical Mayday situation? If it's my Mayday, then I can breathe for a long time off half of an hour bottle. But if I have if I'm in a situation and I have a meter that's going to die, all of a sudden I know nothing. And I mean, I guess I could leave that situation just the same, but I mean, half a bottle of air is pretty good amount of time for me. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah. I'm going to say that the meter is not that big of a deal because, all right, so we'll just work my logic with me here, right? Our meters tell us almost nothing to begin with, right? Our 5-gas meter tells us flammability and like 3 chemicals that exist in the world, one of which I can do without at 16%, or I cannot do without until 16%. CO I can last a little while, and hydrogen sulfide is hydrogen sulfide, right? So if my meter fails, like, I've never been in a position where, like, if I didn't have my meter, it was the end of the world. I've been in positions where if I didn't have my air, that would be the end of my world. So I think if I had the option, I would have my meter die out versus my air dying out. And I'm a lot fatter than you, so I go through more air.
It would. I mean, functionally, if my meter dies, it doesn't change the environment at all. It just changes my ability to know what's around me. And if I'm in the proper PPE to begin with, then I just extricate myself and then we're on with the day, right? It's not mission critical for me to know. It's mission critical for me to know if I'm going to be still taking actions, like if I don't have another option. But if it's just a matter of, extricating myself based on the idea that I can't see what's around me, then that's just pretty easy logic, I would think.
I got a question for you, Jake, because I was in a very, very, very large department, right? Like when I tell you that our 5-gas meter, that the department had hundreds, if not thousands of them, I'm like not being facetious in any way, shape, or form. You come from a smaller department and you are surrounded by much smaller departments. What would happen? How would you operate and function if the only meter that you had for a situation went down? Like, what's the contingency plan?
It would, if we ran out of meters where I work, we'd really be in a bad spot.
Okay, all right. So you're not.
So we're not at that small. Like we have.
Okay.
We are the biggest hazmat team in the state. We have plenty of stuff. But if you play that hypothetical out, right? Say we go out into the sticks. And now, you're 2 hours away from the nearest metropolitan area or like populated place, and your meter runs out. The question becomes, it depends, right? Well, is it a thing that we suspect to be one of the things on our 5-gas meter? If it's not flammable, and it's a liquid, it probably isn't going to be detected on it anyways. So it probably doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're, you could navigate it. You wouldn't want to. Ideally, you'd probably try to get the wheels spinning towards getting one to you. But you probably could navigate quite a few different things. I mean, it depends what else you have. Do you have papers? Do you have, any other sort of monitoring or metering or sampling tools? Right? I don't know, but
I kind of would think that we would like just trying to put myself in that situation. Like, okay, crap, I just ran out of meters. What would I do? What if you assumed the worst and operated accordingly? Right? Like I've got a gas leak and I know I have a gas leak and my meter goes out. Well, what if I just act as if I'm constantly hitting an action level? So now what would I do if I had hit the action level with gas? Well, I would change out the environment. environment. So I move forward, changing out the environment, operate from there. My only thing that would be difficult is I wouldn't know whether or not that action corrected the atmospheric condition.
Yeah, and I think that the only real turning point in that would be, have we identified whether or not we're dealing with a flammable or not, because that's going to dictate what PPE you're in. And obviously you can change your environment, right? We can go to doing some sort of ventilation. But if you think about gas, like gasoline, you're like, okay, we know it's flammable. We don't even need a meter for it because we know that if we're in a certain distance of it, we're going to be in a flammable range anyways, right?
Right.
But if we didn't know if it was flammable versus non, that would be the only kind of, it would make PPE selection really difficult, and it would make, how much interaction would I be willing to have with it kind of a little hairy if we didn't have a meter. But if we can eliminate that, then we're pretty much, if we say like we started out with a meter and the meter died, once we know what category of PPE we're in, then we're probably pretty relatively okay to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, like if I was going on a chlorine leak, I really don't actually need to have a chlorine meter to get in a level A, to go down range, and to perform a function.
Yeah.
So I guess in that kind of scenario, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a nice to have, not need to have, unless you're dealing with a true unknown where you don't even know what kind of category or class material you're dealing with. Right? If you but how often are we going on a true, like, we have no idea what the hell we're dealing with at all? There's no information, there's no placarding,
That's true. We
right?
always know something, right? Like
There
we
should
always
be.
know we always know that we're about to do the next set of advertising.
Oh. That was smooth.
Yeah, you like that.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rigaku Analytical Devices, who are the folks that have been perfecting the 1064 nanometer Raman longer than some of you have even been doing hazmat.
And they just launched their 4th generation handheld analyzer, the Icon X, which is built specifically for the real world crap that we have to deal with on a regular basis. I'm talking like dirty powders, mixed materials, dyes, colors, all the things that throw our other instruments into a temper tantrum.
And the 1064 nanometer laser means reduced fluorescence, so you get fast, reliable chemical ID in under a minute instead of staring at a blank screen wondering what the hell went wrong.
And we're not talking about like, oh, they just upgraded the software. No, none of that. It's a whole new platform, which means it's a whole new toolbox. It's going to support its own accessories, including a standoff analyzer, so you can get answers without getting too close.
If you want an analyzer that's been evolving right alongside with the hazmat world, check out Rigaku's newest Raman at rigakuanalytical.com. Hey, Mikey, you know what I love about the city?
Leaving the city when you're done being in the city? That's what I love about this.
Actually, no, my new favorite thing is these e-scooter gangs.
Oh, the e-scooters, yes, because nothing screams hazmat like a moped with a battery that's about to go nuclear.
Well, that's where Obexion FR saves the day.
Yes, it is lightweight, mobile-friendly, and designed for first responders because the last thing we need is that extra weight when things start heating up.
And let us not forget that it's been third-party tested to lower toxic gases below IDLH levels.
So you could actually breathe while putting out the scooter fire. Guys, don't breathe while putting out the scooter fire.
No. And if you need more, Obexion FR comes in pallet size and certified poly drum kits.
Which is great when you think to yourself, holy crap, we're going to need a lot of this.
Well, protect your team and your lungs. To learn more, go to hazmatguys.dgeo.com. That's hazmatguys.dgeo.com. All right. So we've covered the first two. We're back to the voice of God from on high. What do you have?
All right. What's worse, a boss with a power trip or multiple weak team members?
Ooh, man. It's a real Sophie's choice.
Wow.
I'll let you take this one first, Mike.
Okay,
Go for it.
I'm going to go with weak team members. All right. I'm going to go with weak team members. All right. Well, just, okay. Repeat the boss one again.
What's worse, a boss with a power trip or multiple weak team members?
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. Yeah, this is not a problem. It is the weak team members. Mainly because I could give two shits about the boss and their attitude when all is said and done. If I've got somebody who's on a power trip, I'm just going to ignore the power trip and I'll deal with the consequences later. I can always justify my actions later on, right? As long as I know that I'm operating within the rules that the rule book puts out, and as long as I'm not doing something illegal, and as long as I can justify my decisions, I'm okay having a chief of department come down and yell at me and scream. I know I can justify the actions. I cannot operate well if the rest of my team sucks. Like the operation actually will fall apart. The operation won't fall apart if I've got a shitty boss.
Okay, so I was going to take the counterpoint to this, and now you've made a pretty decent case. So I don't know how I feel now.
It's
I'm
okay. Go
conflicted.
forward.
No, I feel like a lot of the times you can baby along a bad crew, and you can help people help themselves by giving them tasks that are within their scope of understanding and things like that. But if you have a boss that wants to micromanage things, even despite a knowledge gap, or they want to enforce their will upon a situation despite maybe not having the ability to actually know what to do, it doesn't matter if you have the greatest crew on earth. If you have somebody that's going to micromanage them and tell them to do the wrong thing, you can really run into a serious problem. And one of the greatest things that someone managing a hazmat scene can do from a chief level is understand what they know and don't know, and be willing to hand off the reins to someone that knows more. And it takes a fair bit of humbleness and to make that happen, but the chiefs that make that choice end up having scenes that run much better when they identify who their players are and let them do the job that they are trained to do. But it can be a problem to have people on your team that are weak, and obviously there's a spectrum. Like, are they totally worthless, can't do anything, or are they only good inside of certain lanes, or they need a little bit of babysitting? I've just seen it in my life where if you have someone that wants to micromanage but is equally incompetent, you can have some serious problems in that context.
That's assuming that they are listened to. All right, let me give you a scenario and let me ask what you would do in this completely hypothetical situation that never ever happened in Staten Island. Okay. So you arrive on scene to a highly densely populated area. That's key to this part. And there is a propane tank that is leaking. Your hazmat chief says, okay, we're not going to burn it off. I just want you to open the container and let it bleed out.
Okay.
We're just going to empty the container. So here's a boss, right? That's now we at the time, not that this happened, but in this imaginary situation, we had a covering boss, right? So nobody would be looking at that point in time for the covering boss to push back against the chief. Like we would never expect somebody to potentially ruin their position as a new boss by going up against the chief. So you've got this chief who's like, no, we don't want to do a burn off scenario. That takes too long. Let's just open up the tank and let it bleed out.
And this was propane?
Propane, yeah.
20 pounds, 20-pound cylinder, or how big?
20-pound cylinder of propane.
And so his proposal is just to open it and just blast propane into this area.
Yes, because once it's empty, it'll stop leaking.
Okay.
Again, completely hypothetical situation that never happened to me.
First up, bad idea. Secondly, so I guess now you're dealing with not a hazmat scenario. You're dealing with a personnel decision. Like, this is clearly a bad choice. How do we navigate this and not bruise this chief's ego, right? Any more than it, the question is, the next layer is, well, does this chief take feedback very well?
Not particularly.
Okay. And so, I mean, I think that if it's up to me, I would make a proposal that's different and say, you have to go up against it, because the risk of following that plan is too high. And if you do it and then the consequences that are potential occur, they're only going to come looking for you. They're not going to probably come at that chief. So
Agree 1,000%.
So I don't know how you necessarily get from point A to point B. I would be interested in what your hypothetical situation played out as. But I think that you can't do the plan because the plan is the consequences are too great. So you have to somehow circumvent the poor planning. It also takes so long to set up, like flaming off the container or whatever you were going to do, that you're going to sneak it past them. So you're going to have to address it in words at some point before the whole operation gets set up. I don't know. How did the hypothetical situation, how would it have played out hypothetically?
Hypothetically, how did it play out?
Yeah.
It played out by somebody saying, "We're not doing that," walking back to the rig and flaring off the propane against his direct orders.
Okay. And how did that work out hypothetically?
It hypothetically worked out fine because the decision was completely justifiable after the fact. Where it was like, okay, I have solid reasons why, like, I can't, like, morally I can't do that, right? I can't put an entire, block in danger, especially a highly populated block. I can't violate EPA standards. I can't go against OSHA. Like, we had all of these reasons, and all of these reasons were addressed, and ultimately it boiled down to that it was essentially what amounted to be a completely unjustifiable and actually against the law order that was ordered. So we were covered in not following through with that. But it's, for me, it's what popped into my head when this question went off is, here you have a leader who is micromanaging, doesn't know what they're doing, telling you to do something, insisting on you doing it your way. And for us, it was just, we're going to do it the right way and we'll suffer the consequences afterwards.
I think I've heard you guys say before, I think either you or Bobby saying that, one of the greatest things about hazmat is that whoever knows the rules is actually in charge.
Yes.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter. The rank structure falls apart a little bit because ultimately the person that's the smartest and knows the rules the best ends up being in charge. And that seems to be that principle kind of playing out in practice, hypothetically.
Yeah. It hypothetically, of course, and it pretty much did, and because that was such a strong example of, like, basically, I told the people who were questioning me on what happened afterwards, I told them what happened, and they were like, really? He wanted to just let propane loose? Like, it was such a clear, like, overstepping of what should be done that I was safe. But given other circumstances, I opted to just follow the direction and the orders because I didn't necessarily feel like I had enough, that it was so profoundly ridiculous or bad that I would have the backing of my, actual company officers. So I ended up electing to just follow the orders to the and do it as safe as possible.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When it becomes a preference, then you have to follow the orders and you have to bite your tongue a little bit. When it's a safety issue or a regulatory issue or something like that, then you kind of can, not listen to a bad order, I think, and be justified in it.
Had I had incompetent team members with me at the time, that potentially could have made things a whole lot worse. So I was very grateful for the team that I had with me that day, because we pretty much set up a flaring operation within moments so quickly that there wasn't time for that chief to push back against what we were doing.
Interesting. All right, let's do one more. Bobby, you got one more for us?
Got one more, and I think this is kind of an easy one, but I'm curious to see what you think. Unknown substance, symptomatic victim, EMS wants to treat based upon signs and symptoms, but you want to hold until you identify the chemical.
Ooh, can you define treat a little bit more? Like, are they doing nothing? Or
No,
are they going to push drugs?
Pharmacy, like medical medicine.
Okay.
They want to have definitive care based upon symptomology without knowing their identity. Do you hold their treatment until you identify, or do you let them start rolling?
I think that my first question would be, are we talking life-threatening symptomology, or are we talking discomfort?
Let's say towards the life-threatening side.
Okay. Is the process reversible? Like, so for example, if I gave Narcan is kind of like that's not a big deal. If they're wrong, no. It's not reversible.
Non-reversible. Okay. Amputation.
If they commit to a branch, a scheme, they're committing.
Okay. How this is the funny thing about a theoretical like this is that, like, I think this is actually indicative of like me and Mike's understanding of the topic, is that it becomes a series of questions, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, oh, well, I still have to ask 1,000 questions to get to my decision, right? Because
and if you're even just a little bit more advanced, the questions that we're asking become a learning point in and of itself, right? Like, why are you asking that question?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that we found ourselves both following the same line of thinking, which was like, all right, well, I have like 20 extra questions to get in this hypothetical scenario, because that is the process, right? The process is, it's always depends. It's like, like, well, what is the symptomology? What, like, how confident and unique is this symptomology to the treatment method? Like all these things come into that decision. To even say, I would venture to say that without specifics, it might not be an answerable question.
I would agree with that. I think, all right. So in the grand scheme of things, I am not a medical professional in any way, shape, or form other than push, breathe, don't touch the blood. Like, that's pretty much the extent of my medicine. I did ALS stuff years ago, but I'm certainly not going to pretend like I even remember any of that. So I'm going to go with, in order for them, if they're doing something hazmat related, more than likely there's no standing protocol for it. If there's no standing protocol for it, then that means that they've been in touch with a doctor, and a doctor actually made this decision. And from a medical point of view, I don't really think I have much to push back on with a doctor.
I would say I would agree with Mike, but I would say the only reason I would potentially intervene in that is if there was a hazmat logic that I could use to do it. Like, go apart from any medical knowledge I might have and say, based on the treatment you're going to use, is there hazmat rules that you might be breaking? Say, like, oh, we want to spritz this, like, water on this, acid exposure. Like, oh, I know that's going to be bad from a hazmat perspective, so don't do that, right? But if it's not breaking any flagrant hazmat rules, I would defer to the medical knowledge, which is beyond me. I think that's probably a fair take